So let's look into adding some data into a worksheet. I've gone ahead and changed our worksheet here, and I've got a rudimentary department budget that we'll be inserting some data in. But before we get started on that, what I'd like to introduce you to is a feature in Excel called Autofill. Autofill is a very useful time saver that allows you to do numerous things and cut a lot of steps. I've entered some basic data, and I'll walk you through some interesting things here. Now, Autofill allows you to populate large ranges of the cells very easily. I can take something like a date, and if I wanted to replicate that date across a range of cells, I can drag the bottom handle and have it fill down. Or I can select the range of cells with my keyboard and press Control D, and it'll replicate them down. Now, if there's a series, you can see here that I've got the first date in January and the 1st of February, and assuming I want to have the first date of every month, Excel will interpret what I have there, and it'll create the rest of the dates for me without me having to type them. Similarly, it'll evaluate numbers as well, and you can see that I'm working by twos. It'll send that out. I could actually do multiple columns at the same time. I can select these both. In this case, it's going by twos. In this case, it's counting up by ones. And here, I've entered a formula, which is multiplying C by D, and I can extend that formula and replicate it across. And instead of multiplying C1 and D1 repeatedly, it will actually alter the formula to be working with the associate and appropriate row. And then finally, I can do that also by, if I have a, let's see, if I double click on it, it's going to intelligently try to figure out how far it wants to do it, and it'll actually build it out itself without me having to drag the range itself. So you can see autofill is very powerful and very useful and can potentially save you a lot of time. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually show you that in action right now after we insert some data. So let's jump back to our budget. I'll switch over to another sheet that's been submitted to me and has some data in it that I need to import. If you notice, our budget had all the months of 2012 except for December. And here I have my December data, so I've gone ahead and selected it. I'll copy it into the clipboard right now. Right-click and then copy. Switch back to my other worksheet. I'll select the cell that I want to insert the data before, which in this case is M1. I will click the Insert Copied Rows, and it's going to ask me, okay, for the data that is there, do I push it down or do I move that data to the right so I don't destroy it? I'm going to say move it to the right. So we've inserted our data now, and you're going to notice that our formula, which was formerly totaling up all the months so far, has a little warning indicated by it. And the message says, okay, there's additional data here now. Do I factor this into the equation or do I remove it? So it's asking me to address this issue. I'll click the drop down and I can say, all right, in this case, I don't want to admit it. I want to update the formula to include the new data. And so my single cell formula has been updated for the first row. Now I want to replicate that across all the rest of them because all the rest of them are also invalid. And I can double click and I can replicate and autofill the formula down through all the rest of the cells. So you can see autofill can potentially save you tons of time. And so let's go ahead and do one more thing. Let's say that we have decided that we don't want to use the concept of other's too vague. Let's call that uncategorized. So I'm going to do a search replace, but I'm going to do it across all the worksheets. So I'm going to do replace. If you recall, under options is what allows me to control what the scope is. It's currently set to sheet. I want to set that to workbook. I'm going to replace other with uncategorized. Hopefully I spelled that correctly. And we will replace all, and it'll tell me we made 6 replacements. So we've inserted some data, we've updated formulas accordingly, and we've done a little searching and replacing, and we've learned what autofill is about. So why don't you go ahead and experiment with some of that yourself.